Hello, welcome. In this video I'm going to talk about how I healed my relationship with sleep to go from insomnia to sweet dreams. I should say sometimes it is going well and I sleep fine, and other times I have problems, but nothing like what I used to have. Even as a child, I can remember not being able to go to sleep, waking up really early. It has never been normal for me to like put my head on the pillow and fall asleep straight away. And yet I know that is normal for a lot of people, which is just baffling to me. I'm in recovery from addiction, and I think it's quite easy for a lot of people to say that my addiction, it was the reason why I had such bad sleep. And yes, obviously that did make things a lot worse, but the sleep problem predates the addiction problem. Alcohol affects your brain, and so my sleep was affected in a big way. I would have really terrible dreams, which I now in hindsight think might have been withdrawal dreams, because I was drinking so much all the time, even just going 7 hours or whatever without any, that meant I was going into withdrawal. So just like the most terrifying nightmares. If you've ever had anesthetic or fever dreams, I guess, really real, vivid, horrible dreams, I would wake up terrified. At the time they felt like they could have had some kind of spiritual element, but again, this could just have been like the altered mental state, withdrawal, paranoia. They were very intense dreams. Tie this in with the fact that I was, and still am, scared of sleeping. Don't get me wrong, I love feeling rested, but going to bed even now at like midnight and being like, I'm gonna sleep for 8 hours. The idea of just like going to bed for 8 hours and doing nothing, like just being asleep, that really creeps me out. Also, I get like weird intrusive thoughts. Like I'll just be about to go to sleep and then it will be like, your eyes aren't really shut, your eyeballs are still staring up at the ceiling through your closed eyelids. And I'm like, great, why do I need to know that information? That's a very tame one. They will normally be more like horrifying things. Or, you know, like, what if everyone who's ever cared about you is only pretending and you're actually in like the Truman Show? Like, great, thanks for that. In my addiction, the scared of sleeping element was removed because I would just pass out. But then I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and feel like the world was ending. 3 a.m. thoughts. Again, these thoughts predate the drinking. I can remember even when I was like 15 or 16 having 3 a.m. thoughts either about like the fallout from nuclear war or some horrible disease that had no cure and killed people. So you can imagine how I felt when that happened. You know how in the dark everything seems more scary. The next day I would wake up and be like, oh, scared of like nuclear war. That's never gonna happen. I'm scared of some disease that we don't have a cure for and it's killing people. That's never gonna happen. So I would never wake up fully rested because I had just passed out. I would wake up at 8 a.m. and it would feel like I could close my eyes and fall asleep for the whole day because that's how tired I felt, because it wasn't really sleep. Alcohol affects the way you sleep. Once I got into recovery, I had lots to heal with my sleep, particularly because with the alcohol being removed, the fear of sleep came back straight away. That fear which I had been able to dull with alcohol and just pass out, I was now fully afraid again, which was unpleasant. I initially was able to beat this fear by the fact that I was just exhausted from being in rehab all the time. As you might imagine, it was a very intense, emotional, all over the place kind of experience. I also had detox meds. They made me kind of sleepy. They made me sleepy even during the day. That did kind of take the edge off in terms of feeling afraid of falling asleep. I would maybe get 5 hours of sleep in rehab. I mean, that could be why I was falling asleep, probably not to do with the medication, just like I was not sleeping well enough. I would do a lot of journaling in rehab. I got well into journaling. I would stay up until like 1 in the morning writing. Then I would wake up at like 6 or 7 because we had to be up by like 8ish. So I was like, well, I don't want to just hop out of bed straight away and have to go get breakfast and then start the day. Like I want some time to myself just to be like, whoo, take in everything that's happening and do some like morning reflection and writing. Maybe 5 hours sleep is not enough sleep. I kind of wish I'd had my YouTube channel back when I was in rehab, just to do like a morning routine video, because I would have been on it. I would have been able to do like a 6 a.m. productive morning routine. I used to be so scared of the dark as well. We've talked a bit about background of sleeping and about rehab and being scared of sleep, but being scared of the dark, it seems like a childish fear, I guess, but this is kind of never going away. It makes sense to be afraid of the dark and to be afraid of what you can't see. But I have been able to combat this with music and more journaling, but we've talked a bit about the journaling. With music, I find 21 Pilots songs are really helpful in this regard. They address this fear of the dark or this fear of sleep. Songs like Ode to Sleep or Semi-Automatic, and there's other ones as well where they directly, like the lyrics are directly talking about being afraid of the dark or afraid of sleep, and I'd not heard that expressed. That's really refreshing. Just nice to have something that's articulating my experience. Semi-automatic in particular, it's talking about how as the day moves on and night gets closer, his fear grows, particularly when I had really high anxiety. It's exactly how I felt. In terms of facing my fear of sleep, it's basically like exposure therapy, but not out of choice. Like, there's no one forcing me into this except, I guess, just like my own biology. You would die without sleep, so I have to sleep. I've tried like keeping myself awake. I used to use ice cubes, set a timer every 20 minutes. I mean, that wouldn't work because eventually I'd just sleep through it because I would need to sleep. I do kind of go in cycles with it. This is where we get on to the next thing which I wanted to talk about, which is denial. I have to trick myself into sleeping. I will put maybe a TV show on the background. It'll be like midnight, so like I need to sleep. I'd use some denial and be like, I'm not gonna fall asleep. I'll be like, well, I've got my TV show on in the background and I'm sitting in bed, and then I'll be like, well, I'll take my glasses off so I won't watch the TV anymore. And it's like steps. Instead of sitting watching the TV, now I'll lie down, and now I'll put my blanket on, and now I'll turn the light off, and then eventually I fall asleep. But I'm having to like trick myself each time and like pretend I'm not going to sleep, like I'm just turning the light off or I'm just taking my glasses off. Sometimes I'm not thinking about it, and other times it's really terrifying. Does anyone else relate to this? Please, if you struggle with sleep, particularly if you were scared of sleep, please comment below, because I would like to hear how you've been able to combat this or things you've found helpful. We are quite far into the video now, so I trust that you're with me here and you're gonna go with what I'm saying. I do think there is a big spiritual element. I did mention that earlier in the video. The spiritual side of my life is quite key to my recovery, so that's kind of what I fall back on anytime anyone kind of ridicules me. I'm like, well, I need this because I tried running the show. It nearly killed me, so I can't just think that it's just me. To have my higher power or God that I can rely on, because otherwise I'm on my own, and that is terrible news for everyone, but especially for me. On that spiritual side, prayer before bed really helps. I do quite like the Lectio 365 app. That's just like a guided meditation. It allows you to reflect on the day. They have a refrain that they keep returning to, so it's just very meditative. I will leave a link to it in the description because I do very much like that app. But it's not just a mindfulness app, that's spiritual, biblical. The refrain often is part of the Psalms. I also like listening to, there's a band called Sons of Korah and they sing the Psalms. I quite like Psalm 91 and Psalm 60 something, because both of them specifically mention sleep. Psalm 23 also Psalm 1. We're getting very spiritual here. But some days the denial is still there, and so I have the TV on because paradoxically sometimes connecting to the spiritual side, listening to the Psalms, doing the Lectio like we just talked about, that can be unhelpful because I'm like acknowledging the fact that I'm scared. That makes me more scared, whereas if I have something like just I think you should leave on, or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, then I can live in my bubble of denial and pretend I'm not scared of sleeping. Also kind of related to the spiritual side, breathing exercises have been so helpful. I did a video about 3 helpful breathing exercises, which I will link for you because I use them all the time. The one that is particularly helpful for sleep is one that I picked up in rehab. Very simple one. You breathe in on and you count 1, breathe out, count 2. In breath is an odd number, out is an even number. Gratitude also is helpful. I think just trying to create a better life for myself has helped me somehow heal my relationship with sleep. Building my life on gratitude in recovery. Reviewing the day and thinking about all of the things that I'm grateful for. And I can also do some gratitude journaling and just journaling in general. This gives me some closure. If anything bad has happened, I can write about it and be like, okay, we've acknowledged that, we don't have to dwell on it now. If anything good has happened, all of the things that I'm grateful for, that fills my mind with goodness and gratitude. Even if you don't want to try journaling in terms of like getting a nice notebook or having a routine or questions that you answer, which I do, I will leave a link to my journal with me video if you want to journal along and try out the journaling routine I do every day. I have heard people say, and I've tried this as well, if I'm too tired to actually journal or whatever, to keep a notebook or a piece of paper on your bedside table. Anything you're thinking about, maybe you're trying to sleep, your thoughts are going, you're planning like your to-do list for the next day, or you're like, oh, I need to do this thing. It then can be helpful to have the piece of paper on your bedside table and just write out all of that stuff to get it out of your head. I think having a routine is important, some kind of evening routine. I did a video about my self-care evening routine a few months ago, so I'll link that. Nice calm self-care routine. I'm not like rigid about like the time I have to go to bed, the order that I do things. Like there is kind of like a structure in terms of I tend to do the same thing. So I do tend to journal every evening. I do tend to put on a similar show, go to bed at around a similar time, but it's not like a strict thing. I think it's important to have some kind of routine. Like recently I've got into the routine of showering in the evening as opposed to showering in the morning. There's been a whole range. We've talked about recovery and spirituality and sleep, denial, journaling. It's not something I hear a lot of people talk about. Like I say, I like 21 Pilots music because they do address this, and I'm like, oh, I've never heard anyone talk about it in these terms before, where he's like, I'll stay awake because the dark's not taking prisoners tonight. I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying there. Why am I not scared in the morning? These are the lyrics to the song. It's like, oh, I'm not alone in this. So if you do also struggle and you have watched this far, thank you, and I hope that this has given you some comfort to know that you're not alone. If you're someone who struggles with sleep for other reasons, maybe you can try out some of the things that I have said in this video, the breathing exercises, gratitude list, having the paper beside your bed. I have found these things very helpful, and my sleep is now a lot better than it was. Something to put on my gratitude list, even though I'm also scared of sleep. This feels like it's been a different video and I'm not really sure why, but we've done it now. I will leave my journal with me video on the screen because I did mention that. If you want to try journaling, that is a nice, cozy, guided journaling routine that you can try out. I do love journaling. I'm doing a daily video challenge, so I'm posting a new video every day. Please subscribe if you'd like to follow along. God bless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.